Okay, we'll start. Give me a moment. Guys, I just wanted to know, do you feel that I'm giving only the theoretical part, and am I not explaining the practical? Practical in the sense, am I not explaining uh, the concepts in theoretical only? Do you feel that? Am I audible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Question for you guys.
Didn't get your question completely. What does it exactly mean?
I'm asking here.
Huh?
I'm giving only the theoretical concepts. Say, suppose if I'm explaining something, any concept, any tool like Jenkins, Git, Docker, Linux scripting, Kubernetes, Terraform.
Mm.
Am I giving only the theoretical part here?
What you gave with the practical theory too. Whatever you did,
Hmm.
that included the practical way too. Because if you taught English, you have showed how does that work. But we don't know exactly how to implement it, which means through Jenkins pipeline. That's what.
You are not aware of implementing in Jenkins.
Huh. The connection between the Jenkins and the Kubernetes, how the pipeline exactly works. The
Yeah,
complete.
there is a plugin available under Jenkins called Kubernetes, right?
Didn't
Have
know this.
you? I did not share the plugins. Can you check your notes, please?
Yes, I have seen them.
Ah,
Yeah,
have I not shared the Kubernetes plugin?
yes, you have shared, but I haven't gone through that practical. That's what I meant. Through the Jenkins pipeline, you haven't deployed and showed it. That's what I said.
That at least you guys have to explore and
So
uh,
we are doing
say
it.
that, right? Hmm.
We are doing it. You asked it right. That's why I'm saying it to you.
That's what the
That
feedback went to Swami and Sandeep.
okay.
Fair enough. Let's have what I'll do. Uh, I'll complete all the concept from Kubernetes and let's have a Jenkins deployment, all the components from Jenkins. Let's do that. Uh, I'm just sharing my screen. Able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. Okay. Before moving to that, anybody has any questions, guys? Anybody has any questions in any concept? Jenkins, Git, Linux, scripting, Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, any tool, any concept. I don't want to pick a name here. Again, I'm asking, it may be anything. Please do not hesitate to ask the doubts and questions and concepts.
Sandeep, here Jenkins pipeline we are writing, right?
Hmm.
From how to implement that linting and sonar cube, just you have shown that. So, but we have not done any project on that. So, it will be helpful. Sonar cube, how to implement, and linting in the Jenkins pipeline.
Okay. Linting
And
and Sonar Cube.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
like please show like one like any one project like pipelines linked with the Docker Kubernetes with GitHub repository.
See, I told right, we will have to schedule a weekend session. See, we cannot share that project in screen sharing, right?
No, we can take any default project, right? Like uh, uh, not like live projects, like
Okay.
okay, Sandeep.
We'll work on that. Yeah. Whatever you ask, I'll give it from my end because I got a very bad feedback on. I'm very much disappointed. That's what I'm just thinking. What I can improve and what I can move forward. Okay, let's make a note.
No, Sandeep, like as you said,
No,
like
no, 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 no. It's not like that. I got to know that. Let's make a point here. Jenkins pipeline from lint and sonar cube and Jenkins pipeline for Docker and Kubernetes config. Okay. What
And
else?
whatever volume you will create in Dockers, how to attach to the different containers.
See, when you refer some documents, you will get to know this. Okay. You guys are expecting us to show volumes attached in different containers. Okay. Any other questions again? Any other concept that you want to know?
Oh. So how do we attach the secrets from how do we
Secrets from.
attach the secrets in Kubernetes? How do we encode it and how do we attach it?
Yeah, in the Kubernetes, we use config map and the secrets are we use the third-party tools also like Asika Vault, depending on the project. Is it will
What is it?
like secrets we use right like credential secrets and all in the Kubernetes. We
Hmm.
use the third-party tool or we can use the Kubernetes secrets we have right. We use it. Or it depends on the company.
I did not get your question. What is meant by third party tool?
Like Ashika Vault is there, right? We have to store the secrets and all.
Hmm.
And in AWS also we have one uh, secret manager something we have in AWS also.
Hmm.
So it's depending on the companies they use or like how we use the secrets in
See,
the Kubernetes.
basically, every organization look for open source and uh, which is who will give the free trial.
Okay.
Okay, so which is linked with the cloud, they will use the same. Already they have purchased some of the resources from AWS or Azure. If they are providing the secrets in a backend way, they'll use the same like Vault and HashiCorp. They are shadowing off. They are interlinked with cloud providers. That's why they'll use Vault and HashiCorp.
Okay.
What is the question here? How do we attach the secrets?
Uh, no, like yes. Would you like which tool normally depend in the Kubernetes? We have config map and secrets, right? So
Hmm.
we use from the Kubernetes only, or we use any like as you said, ASIC or AWS
No,
secret manager.
we use see secrets from the cloud providers.
Okay.
not from the Kubernetes. See, we use Vault anyways.
Okay.
Okay, so suppose if you use Azure, there is a secrets called Key Vault that we integrate with service principals in Azure, and similarly we do have in AWS, right? Secrets.
Yes, yes. In
That's
AWS.
how we use the cloud provider secrets.
Okay.
What is the question here, Rohit?
Mine was, how do we attach the secrets? How do we use them? How do we
In
implement
where
in
Kubernetes?
Kubernetes? Uh,
So these things should go with pipeline.
no, I'm
All
not
4 points.
not about pipelines, and we don't know exactly how it is exactly we have to use them exactly. So how do how do you all use in production? So show us that one. It will be helpful.
No, yeah, secrets. See, you will create secrets in a generic way, right?
Huh?
So you will have the secrets name that you create, right? So every secrets will be having their own name, right?
Yes,
Have you created secrets in
uh,
Kubernetes?
I have tried, but few say we have to use in the Jenkins level. Yeah.
Wait, wait.
Mm-hmm.
See, when you're saying secrets
Mm-hmm.
in Kubernetes,
Mm-hmm.
this is the secrets for Kubernetes resource.
Huh.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, when you're talking about secrets or credentials,
Huh.
right? In
Yeah.
Jenkins,
Mm.
you will have the Kubernetes secrets or Jenkins that you created in Jenkins. You will have to use the Jenkins credentials. Say, suppose how do we used our GitLab credentials
Credentials.
in
Huh.
Jenkins, right?
Huh.
That's how we need to implement.
This is what our doubt is. That we are not getting, so there is an option in this directly secrets in the Kubernetes,
Hmm.
and there is a secret manager in Jenkins.
See, the secrets that this you will use in Kubernetes. This is related to your Kubernetes.
Ah, yes, but the problem here is if we pass it through Jenkins pipeline, do we have to use it in the runtime arguments as Jenkins, or do we
Yes.
have to save it here itself? The confusion is lies here actually. How do we exactly use them? We are getting
Okay.
confused what to no don't know where to refer exactly. This
Okay. See, you are aware of where to uh, create secrets and where to use in Kubernetes.
huh?
Let's not go to Jenkins here.
Okay,
Let's be in Kubernetes.
okay,
You are clear on creating secrets and you are clear on usage of secrets in Kubernetes.
yes,
Okay. Now, when you want to use this in Jenkins,
mm,
you will have to create Kubernetes secrets. Secrets in the sense your Kubernetes resources are
mm,
stored in your remote, means
oh,
GitLab,
huh,
GitHub repository.
mm,
That repository will create in Jenkins, right?
oh
Secrets
yes, yeah,
that you need to use. Anyways, your config file, your manifest file is using your secrets, right?
mm,
Internally, so that your all file will come to Jenkins workspace. It will use the secrets, Kubernetes secrets inside your manifest, and it creates and deployed your all pods, whatever the secrets that you used in your manifest, it will creates, right?
yes,
And that's how it works.
okay.
Again, anybody has any questions, guys? See this Sonar Cube configuration. I do have my own organization project, so I cannot share here and cannot show that, but we will have to schedule some weekend sessions. You can visit and see the SonarCube configuration. Okay, SonarCube is basically to scan the code quality of source code, irrespective of your code, like Java, Python. We can also scan Python packages, Java, .NET, C++, embedded, Python, anything.
Uh, ha- have you been implementing customized quality gates or the default ones?
Customized views. Say for C and C++, we use C. Are you aware of C?
No, not aware.
So that depends on the code quality that we need to check. For
Okay.
C and C++, we use C and the licenses that we validate. And then for Java and then .NET, we do have set the quality gates that depends on the organization, and that depends on the product that we wanted to implement. Currently, we have implemented that the macros that we define in source code, right?
Mm.
Are you aware of macros?
Ah, yes, bit of.
Um, hmm. Oh no, what is mean by bit of?
Just what is it? I don't know exactly
See,
the term.
okay. Sonar cube is basically scans complete macro. The function that you defined, the function that you called in your source code,
Mhm.
it should end up with the particular macro.
Okay.
So, say suppose if you include any header files, or maybe if you include any uh, pom.xml that you define, if you use
Ah,
Java source
dependency.
code
Ah,
dependencies.
ah.
So it should scan from the pom.xml, and it will redirect your source code if you use Java, and it will also redirect your in your MS build. It will redirect to your .NET. It scans the macros complete function. Say
Mm,
suppose if these line number 328 to 331 is complete a structured source code, it
mm,
scans each and every stage.
mm.
If it is, it will suggest the macros which is undefined reference
Okay.
that we called in pom.xml, or that we called in any manifest.xml. When we use ms build, it directly points in the sonar cube scan.
Okay. MS
The,
Build is for Microsoft applications, right?
yes,
Okay.
your .NET applications, right?
Ah, yeah.
So that's how Sonar Cube scans. So basically, we need to set the quality gate based on our source code and based on our product that we implement.
Mm, okay. And Sonar Cube, are we setting up a separate server for it?
Yes, we implement the separate server. And even we implement the separate server for JFrog Artifactory. See, separate server in the sense we host this in the uh, cloud provider instance. That's it.
Okay. Do we have any Docker image for that one, or just
Yes, we
in the
do.
manual setup?
No, 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 no. We do create Sonar Cube. See,
Ah,
basically, we do keep Sonar Cube as a pod. See,
okay.
whatever the infra that you create from Terraform,
Mm-hmm.
it creates that SonarCube pod and hosted in your Kubernetes cluster that is
Mm,
hosted in the cloud provider, either AWS or Azure.
okay.
Okay. And similarly, the JFrog Artifactory creates the pod, Artifactory pod. See, basically that depends on the project requirement. Suppose if they want to keep it in a pod, in terms of pod is a Sonar Cube.
Mm,
Even Jenkins as a pod, they wanted to deploy via the Kubernetes cluster.
mm,
We do create a pod, separate pod for SonarCube, separate pod for Jenkins, separate pod for Artifactory.
okay.
So that's how we do create. So here, see, we have to call SonarCube API and downloads the package, and we will deploy it via the Kubernetes cluster. That's it. That's how we are handling SonarCube in pod. That's how we handled Jenkins as a pod, right? That's how we handled Nginx as a pod, right? So this is a
Mm-hmm.
kind of application. We are maintaining it our own licenses. We are maintaining it our within our organization in terms of pod.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Any other doubts, guys? Even though when I cleared doubts, even though when I explained end to end with an practical point, I got some disappoint on your feedback. I don't know from whom. It's okay, but it's the very first time that I got. Um, I don't know what was happened. Let's have uh, concepts covered in further sessions. Where is my instances here? Okay, so I was getting the space issue, right? So what I did, I have created a volume and I have attached volume to this instance. I have increased this to 20 GB. So before it was 8 GB, the complete storage, and I have created a volume and I have attached the volume to this instance. So now I'm able to, let's go to storage. Maybe 20 or 25 have increased. Here I do have created two volumes, and one I have kept it at 20 and other one I have kept it at 25 GB. You will able to see this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is how we do balance the uh, what to say, the resources. See, whatever we are talking about the resources. So everything goes CPU and your memory. That's it. Keep in mind wherever we speak resources, right, node resources, pod resources, right, and volumes. Node resources and pod resources, when you are talking in Kubernetes, it particularly into your CPU and the utilization, CPU utilization and the memory, correct? So called, we call it as resources. So how do we make use of resources, right? That's how we call it as. So I have increased it to 25 and I have pointed the path into this path, the default path. Okay. Now let's do details. Okay. Before moving to that, any other doubts and any other questions that you want to know, guys, from anybody?
Yeah, Sandeep, like we had to show some of the troubleshooting questions. So what exactly we get issues in real world while working as in some DevOps tools? Like in Jenkins, if a build get fails or like if it's get pending state, so how do you troubleshoot? What questions we can
Am I
resolve that?
not explained the troubleshooting part when I'm explaining Jenkins? If your
No,
build fails, one
I'm
minute.
asking,
If your
yeah,
build fails, okay, what is okay? Let me ask this way. What is your dependency for build? Your
dependencies
source code,
is,
right?
yeah, it's
Your
source
source
code.
code, right?
Yeah,
So if you are facing a build issue, you will have to check in your source code, right?
yeah, like.
Is that your doubt?
No, I'm telling we know the theory concept. Like we need to
That's
get
what
that
I'm
thing.
asking. Am I giving only the theoretical component, theoretical concepts?
Yeah, means like we don't like we tried ourselves. Like we don't see the realistic. Like in practical visualization is not seen in like as say like any kind of dummy project or any app. So I'm asking kind like that. It's not only build failure. I'm telling common DevOps tool troubleshooting. So what
See, there
exactly?
are no common errors, common uh, troubleshooting part, okay? That based on your project setup, that based on you have configured, or maybe some other configured with a Jenkins library based on your error that you are going to troubleshoot. But are you aware of we are capturing the errors from Jenkins pipeline, right?
Yes.
Through that you can see the logs, right? Debug logs.
Yeah, we can see it. Once we build, we can see it at output.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's showing. I'm just telling that I'm just asking like what kind of issues. Like I'm telling only for not build fail. So if it is a pending state, so how do you resolve it in? Like I'm just asking as
What
in
is mean
real.
by pending state? What kind of pending state it is? The build pending state.
Yeah, it's not
There is no build
pending.
pending state, that kind of error I never seen in my project.
Okay. Like exactly, we don't know what kind of issues. I'm just asking like this kind of
That's
issues
what
may
I'm
find.
saying. Based on your stage setup, every Jenkins file has their own stage, right? In
Yeah,
Groovy,
yeah,
checkout, lint, build. code quality, unit tests, and deploy, push to Artifactory or
Okay.
deploy, right? And
Yeah.
post build actions. You will trigger an email when the build fails, right?
Yes.
See, when we are asking questions on Jenkins stage, see, am I not give the complete? See, here I gave the. Did I share this in the group?
Yes.
Then why you guys are saying only some uh, three to two to three stage? There are a lot of stages. Basically, this is the generic stage that we create. And apart from this, see, the Jenkins is basically the CI/CD. Okay, we will not only generate a build. There are a lot of components, lot of concepts that we integrate based on the project requirement. Okay, so these are all the generic stage that we create, right? Clean workspace, lint, sonar qr covarity. See, sonar qr covarity are the code quality analysis tool. Either you can use sonar qr covarity, we call it as analysis. And the build generation, here you will generate your target build, and then particular unit test for your build. Suppose if you found any failures, either of these, suppose if you failed with lint, okay, we need to set troubleshoot in lint stage. Lint is basically, it identifies the source code. Suppose if you referenced any library in your source code from the developer which they have written, that will validate the source code package. That is done by lint. Basically, it identifies the source code quality. Means, see, there is a difference for SonarQube and the lint. Okay, lint is basically, it will lint the source code. Suppose if you refined any macros or if you called any package in the source code from the developer side, it validates that package which is valid or not. Say suppose if you are looking for long term support for that particular, are you guys following, are you able to understand this statement?
Yeah.
Okay, so say suppose, what about others?
Yes, Sandeep.
Yes,
Understood. Okay, so see, say suppose if you are in Java, okay, so Java source code will be having length of script, in the sense length of Java code which is written in the source code, right? So say suppose if one of the developer has referred some package to that source code, say like this is a Java source code, okay, developer has written, right? Some this particular line he has called some macros from external library which is in the open source. Okay, when we are looking for long term support for this particular line, whether we are able to validate that package is valid or not, this is completely on technical part. Are you guys able to understand this?
Yes.
You're getting my point?
Yeah.
Okay, so what about others here? uh,
Yes,
Everybody,
Sandeep.
are you guys able to
Yes.
follow the
Yes.
statement? See, what I'm trying to say
Yes, sir.
here is, irrespective of the source code, we should not stick on to only Java, only C, C++, .NET, Python packages, right? So irrespective of the source code, we should refer some, okay, the feature that they wanted to implement, they should refer some packages, right? That package we need a long-term support, which is basically the open source. Okay, that validates the lint, the macros, it validates the conditions, and then uh, the loops that we called, it validates by lint. Okay,
I mean to say the stable versions.
exactly.
Okay.
Stable version of support, the stable support from that package.
Okay.
Because suppose if our project runs at more than 5 years, we'll validate whether that package supports still 5 year. Because see, if they upgrade it to some other version, right, from package side, say suppose if your Linux package or Ubuntu Linux build that we make use of in any of the source code, like any Linux package, that upgrades and they kept it empty in the repository or maybe in that package, we will get failed, right? So that we are not getting the long term support. We want the stable package, and we want the macros that we called according to that package that we defined, customized source code based on the package that we called, right? That is done by lint. That's how we do integrate lint, so that we can have a stable package that we generated for this particular build, so that you are, if you are getting build failures, it may cause lint also. If you're getting build failures, it may cause sonar or query, and even it may cause clean workspace also. And the very first point is it may cause your source code in the sense the lint, right? And then unit test to the particular build, right? Clear with this?
Yes, sir. And which tools do we use for linting?
Lint itself is a tool.
Okay.
Suppose if you are using your C++, we use CMake lint.
Okay. The build tools associated with them.
Yes.
Okay.
So we do integrate this in Jenkins. Okay. So Jenkins pipeline from checkout lints on our queue. Jenkins pipeline for Docker and Kubernetes configuration. Volumes attached in different containers. How do we attach the secrets in Kubernetes? Build failures in Jenkins and errors.
One more, sir. The config maps.
That is in my list that I need to cover in my Kubernetes concepts.
Okay.
Okay, let's make a list here.
And this one too. How do we attach the volumes to Kubernetes cluster?
Here is not different containers.
Okay.
Volumes attached in different containers, nothing but
Okay.
you are attaching volumes to your cluster, right? Once
Yeah.
you attach your container, you will use the same container, you will create it as a pod and you will deploy it to the Kubernetes cluster, right?
Okay. Got you. I thought it was for Docker. Okay.
Docker only we use in Kubernetes, right?
Hmm.
Containers.
No, I heard that I have been through the Docker volumes. Kubernetes says that it can allocate the cloud storage to ABS, aka the Azure storage, but Docker only said bind modes and the Docker volumes. So,
See, Docker itself and Kubernetes itself has their own volumes and
huh,
bind mounts.
yeah,
But our infra hosted in cloud, we make use of volumes from the cloud.
mm,
That's how we do the config in our templates.
okay,
So
sir.
basically, this depends on the infrastructure part, right?
The company projects and their building.
Yes.
Okay,
So we do deploy, we do configure this complete containerization Kubernetes pods that we do create via the Terraform templates. And I'll give a template to create a case cluster.
hmm,
And we do have some of I have my own examples with me. I'll show that before moving to Terraform. I wanted to make you understand this because I never know this. You guys still have these questions and still you are not able to say the answers when we schedule a Q&A.
sir.
Very
Know
much.
the knows few things, but if a scenario question throws up, getting confused what was exactly. So what happened here is, so let me give an example. uh, uh, sir asked, what do you mean by crash loop back off?
What is mean by crash loop backup then?
Ah, so just heard of it. So he asked how to troubleshoot them.
No, yaar, when you configured your pod, your
Haha.
customized application,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't face this crash loop backoff. See, this crash loop backoff, when your application is not attached to this particular port, you will get crash loop backoff. Means your application is crashed.
Huh.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
So your application, your container. So where to fix? We'll have to go to container. your customized application, we log into, we do docker exec puja hb. We use a command to log into a container, docker exec -it bin bash. Keep in mind, okay? And we do exec the docker container, and we check, we access the application internally, and we fix and we recreate the docker build, and we keep the container ready, the same that we configure in the pod, and we point to the similar port number whatever we implemented, and we again we redeploy a pod, we deploy a pod, right? That's how we fix it, the troubleshooting part, correct?
Yeah.
That's how we call it as crash image crash loop backup.
Hmm.
Your application is crashed. Then how you created pod, that's how you created pod, right? Your Jenkins, say
When I
suppose
created
when
pod in the beginning, there was no errors for me.
that's what when you want to know that error, you should get an error,
Ah,
understand?
yeah.
Then see the simple, the reverse engineering that you can do, right? Remove one pod, remove one port number, deploy it, you will get crash loop back off. We can show that, but what we can
No,
think
no.
like, okay, we cannot
Uh,
show directly as a captured error directly in the sessions, so
mhm.
that you can remove any of the line from the code or any of the config.
Doing
You will
trial and
get
error there, but what I got is image pull back.
image pull back
Ah,
off.
image pull back off. Didn't
Okay,
get crash loop back off.
okay. What is the statement of that error you understood?
The image name that we mentioned is wrong in
Ah,
the
correct, right?
ah. So
So
yeah,
go ahead.
no. So know that one and didn't know this one. So if suddenly the question comes up, I have to go through
No,
after all.
wait.
Ah,
The your error is saying simple way that you will have to fix it, right? Image pull back off, right?
error able to understand. Yeah.
No. There is a statement called pull,
Yeah.
right? And there is one more error called crash loop back off, right?
Hmm.
What is this crash, right? You
Pod.
can understand this way, right?
Yeah.
So your application is crashed. That's how I do remember the errors, which the known error, which I don't want to refer in a document. I can fix it immediately,
Okay.
right? So we have to keep some errors, the known errors, when you face when you're asking. Okay, that's how we do put a questions on Q&A that you worked on it, and you face that issue. If you are not, at least you can discuss in a group, and you will have to understand and make prepared, right? At least are you guys connecting with each other and discussing some points, or yourself
No, connecting with few
preparing?
people.
Correct, right? So you can share the thoughts that you found, that you can have a discussion, right? Say let's be a team's discussion and think like you are working into a project and with learning part. Any other concepts again? Are you guys are ready with all the concept apart from this, with everyone?
Sandeep sir, there was one more on my side, sir. How to use the shared library? We know the theory only, sir.
Shared library, I have explained that all the Groovy script which we keep, shared libraries are reusable codes. Okay. Say
Yes.
suppose we don't have the shared libraries. Okay. So if you want to really understand the shared libraries part, see that contains complete your Groovy package. Okay. Say suppose if your Jenkins build is dependent with any package, we don't want to build that. Our shared libraries are built, are ready with the package. On top of that, our source code will build. Okay. The configuration of your shared library is, I have told that here we do call directly before we start the environment. Shared lib we call it as, right? You were able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Shared lib.
In pipeline code, we import that shared library, right, sir?
Yes. And we suppose if you want to point a particular library called shared library at the rate followed by particular commit. Okay, see, that is also a repository. Okay, so we do call the shared library this way, means you will have the repository called shared library. See, when I explained you that day, right? Wait, let's log into my GitLab account. See, basically we do call shared library this way. This you understood?
Okay, so now I understand where we
Okay,
exactly we import.
we
Yes, sir.
need to call the shared library at the rate of particular commit, right? Correct, right? We can point at the rate of followed by the commit ID. It will be handled. This shared library is handled with this particular ID, commit ID, right? So that it pulls the complete Groovy code to your Jenkins workspace, and it builds the pre-built binary on top of it. Starts building your source code. Getting my point?
Yes, sir.
So that's how the shared library works. Okay, so I do have in my project, we do have integrated shared library. We need to plan for a session. uh, Give me a moment, let me log in. 5 verification code.
So we create and then store it in a repo, and then we import that in the pipeline code, right, sir?
What do we create? I did not get your
Shared,
question.
shared library.
Ah,
So we stored it in Git repo, and then we import that in pipeline code, right, sir?
exactly. So see, shared library is a kind of repository. Okay,
Oh, okay,
you
sir.
have this repository stored in your GitLab or GitHub or Bitbucket. You call this shared library this way, this particularly with a particular commit. See, I'll show like, think like this. This is your project. Okay, pipeline E2E is your project. Okay, so if you go back here to your actual account where your organization is created, this is your project, right? So you getting my point, Sidesh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
the
sir.
other repository that you see, right?
Yes,
Demo
sir.
Jenkins pipeline E2E.
Pipeline.
So you will have your source code, all your Jenkins pipeline, your unit test written in your source code you have in this repository. This is your project. Out of this
Yes,
project, there is a repository called Jenkins. Say like, think like this is the shared library.
shared library.
This
Yes, sir.
repository is having your all Groovy code with a pre-built code which is written in .py. Okay, test.py, test2.py, readme.py. Okay, I mean dot groovy. Sorry, dot groovy.
Yes,
All
sir.
the files are in Groovy. There is no source code. There is nothing that we gonna keep it in the shared library. Means that library that we gonna make use of other pipelines to build our source code. That's it. That library configs the required prerequisites tool, prerequisites binaries, which supports to build our code. That's it. Okay, suppose if you're using Jenkins, you will use Groovy. All this. So how do we configure this? Say suppose this is your shared library. Come to your Jenkins file, shared lib. Instead of this, your repository name will be Jenkins at the rate of followed by. Let's go to here and always try to point to the latest hash ID. Let's go to commit. And what is the latest head hash ID is this. Come here and configure, add your commit ID here so that you have configured your shared library. You getting my point?
Okay, sir. I
This
getting
is
it.
your repository apart from your project, so called your shared library. Just an example. The name
Yes.
should not be a Jenkins. It should be a library, platform library. We call it as. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's how we do call the libraries. Getting my point?
Yes, sir. I got it.
Any other questions?
And daemons that you have not explained, so that one we have to know.
That is in my list.
Okay.
Okay. What I am not explained then? What you found that? What you feel that I'm not explained? Again, config maps, daemon set again. What else?
Mention that EKS ingress control that also. EKS.
Yes, sir. EKS ingress controller. I have mentioned. What else?
Sir, is this in the EKS we use AWS load balancer control, right? In the Nginx ingress control also, is it chargeable or we can use open source freely?
No, that is open source.
Okay. In the companies, we actually use AWS load balancer. It depends, or like Azure load AKS like that.
No, no, no. What is your question?
Like when coming to the live projects in the companies, we use the free source Nginx ingress controller, or depending on the company, like AWS load balancer control, we use.
See, basically, when it comes to the load balancer, we use the cloud provider load balancer. Okay, when we are talking about the ingress controller, we use the open source ingress controller, that too with the licensed one, and we do validate it, and we look for long-term support. The ingress controller, the Nginx, we use normally the Nginx ingress controller to get a long-term support, that to validate it from the platform team. You getting my point? Or are you confused?
No, sir, understand.
Anybody has any questions? Amruta, yes. Are you sure? Okay. Pooja HB.
Uh, no, Sandeep.
Okay. So let's have a discussion on affinity. Okay. So affinity in Kubernetes. So uh, anybody wants to disconnect here? It's 8 o'clock, 7:56.
No, sir. You can continue.
No, Sandeep.
Okay. So affinity in Kubernetes. So why do we use, and what is the purpose of affinity that we wanna make use of this in Kubernetes? So this is basically affinity is a set of rules that we configure. Okay, so set of rules in the sense, so say suppose we do configure nodes and we do configure pods. This affinity is related to pods and nodes. Okay, so say suppose if you have, we are aware of node selector, right? The selectors and labels. Okay, we do point particular label to pick that resource, right? So this affinity is related to the nodes and the pod. Okay, so this defines the particular the set of scheduling rules. Okay, we do define some set of rules in the config in our manifest. Okay, so we do define which pod to select on which node. That's how we use affinity. Okay, so once you created with a node, your Kubernetes nodes, you will be have, we need to point that this particular pod should contain, should get deployed to this particular node where this affinity will come into picture. Okay, so basically we do configure nodes, right? So we do have our cluster, right? So cluster contains all our control plane and all our node components, right? So node contains pod, pod contains our containerized application, correct? And also we do have schedule, we do have node components, right? uh, so what are node components?
The kubectl.
Kubelet.
Ah, cube
What is
let.
kubectl? Yeah,
Okay.
Sorry,
kubectl is the
got
CLI, right?
got confused between kubelet. Yeah.
Kubelet, kube proxy, and container runtime, correct?
Yeah.
Including our pod, right?
Mm.
So this
Yes.
node, see, our node contain pods. Our pod resides in node, correct? So it will not automatically select. See, by default it will select the default node, correct? But that node should configured, that we need to configure that node to pick a particular pod. See, suppose if your pod is handling some data, say 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 like you have implemented some a customized application called some groceries application that you implemented, say like Zepto, right? Your pod is handling all the customer data in the sense, so once the user has placed an order, it should track each and every data, right? So that data is handled, we do create a pod to handle that particular data in the manifest, and that pod should be deployed to the required preferred node, correct? Then only that connectivity will happen, correct? So say suppose you don't want to deploy, if you are not able to deploy this pod to the any other default node, there will there will not be a connection, correct? Correct, right? There will not be a communication between node and the pod. So where this affinity helps us to deploy a particular pod to pick schedule the node, the scheduler, right? Correct. The scheduler which helps to deploy our particular pod into a particular node, correct? Correct, right?
Yes.
So this affinity will come into picture, will help us to define, to deploy our particular pod to pick a particular node, right? You were able to understand this statement?
Yeah, able
So
to understand.
called this affinity will come into picture. Okay, so there are, so I'll give a statement for affinity. Okay, so in Kubernetes, affinity is a set of scheduling rules. You guys are with me, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Scheduling rules that uh, that defines the scheduler in scheduler in deciding deciding where to place. I'll keep this down. Okay, so where to place, okay, so where to place the pods in the cluster. Okay, so I'll move it to this down. Okay, so this affinity is basically a set of scheduling rules. Okay, set of scheduling rules in the sense particular pod should pick a particular node, that rules that we configure in the manifest. Okay, that defines the scheduler in deciding where to place the pods in the cluster. That's how affinity will come into picture. Okay, so in this affinity, see this, so that we can have a flexibility version of node selector. Okay, so from so it's basically okay, so more flexible and stable. Okay, more flexible and stable version of node selector. Okay, okay, so the flexible and stable version of node selector. Okay, see, we will be having the flexibility and more stability. See, we want the stability of our application, right? Whatever we do implement, we want the stability, stable version, right? So once you deploy, say suppose if your pod is deployed to where it picks the particular node, so that you will not get any downtime, you will not get any of the application or not picking the wrong data, right? So that we will be having the more flexible and stable version of node selector, right? So that if the pod is selects a particular required node, so that we will be having the more stability in the project, the stable application, right? Okay, and also it has the uh, required certain nodes based on labels. Okay, this we call it as node affinity. Okay, node affinity, and also place pods together or apart based on other pods called pod affinity, or pod affinity, or pod anti affinity. Okay, see, here there are three things. One is node affinity, that's it, and the second part pod affinity and pod anti affinity. Okay, the when we understood about the pod affinity, the vice versa, the ulta of your affinity will be pod anti affinity. That's it, affinity and anti affinity. Okay, before moving to that, we should understand affinity, the definition of affinity, right? So it says is a set of scheduling rules. Scheduling, we need to understand this clearly. Scheduling rules means we are setting a rule that particular pod should pick the particular node, that we call it as scheduling rules, that defines the scheduler in deciding where to place the pods in the cluster, right? So called affinity. Okay, now the purpose of node affinity we use. Okay, the purpose of node affinity, see, I told that node affinity, right? So what is the purpose that we use node affinity? See this node affinity we use schedule pods to a specific nodes. Okay, schedule pods to a specific nodes, right? And based on the node labels, based on the node labels, right? And similarly, I'll give this way node affinity, right? Similarly, we do have pod affinity, right? So what is the purpose? See, this pod affinity schedule pods near other pods, means this particular pod, based on the node label that we pointed, it will get deployed to the particular node. Okay, so I'll give this way schedule pods near other pods. Okay, the based on the labels on other pods, based on labels on other pods. Okay, so similarly we do have pod anti-affinity. So this represents, see, this schedule pods away from the certain pods. It will exclude some of the pods. Okay, schedule pods away from the certain pods. Okay, based on the other pods. So basically it excludes it. Okay, so away means exclude. Okay, so how do we understand this pod affinity and the pod anti-affinity? See, this pod anti-affinity, when we defined in our manifest, it tags, okay, it schedules, it tags some particular node based on the node label that we provided in the manifest. Okay, what is mean by this anti-affinity? This anti-affinity, suppose if we don't want to schedule that particular pod to the particular node, say suppose, guys, am I audible, right?
Yes, sir.
Sometimes my microphone is okay. If you feel that you are not able to understand or not able to see, not able to hear from me, then you can stop me and ask. Okay, so
Okay.
let me understand this. There is a node called node 1, okay, in Kubernetes, right? So this node 1 should get deployed with pod 1 and pod 2, right? Before moving to this, there are some of the pods which is already you created, saying pod 1, pod 2, pod 2 and pod 3, right? See, this node 1 should get includes only these pod 2. Okay, so in the pod YML, in the pod manifest, we need to call this node selector label inside the manifest of pod.yml. Okay, okay, this node label contains some customized name. Okay, it may be any name that we need to call in the pod.yml, so that your pod will get deployed to this node 1, right? This we call it as affinity. You are able to understand this?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when it's go to the anti-affinity, suppose if I don't want to deploy this pod 3 into the node 1. Why? Because this pod 3 handles different concept based. This is not required to deploy it to this particular node 1, because this should get deployed to node 2, which is handling the other applications. This will get deployed to this. You getting my point? See, basically you have created three pods which is available, right? Either of these three should pick a particular node, right? Node 1 and node 2. So node 1 should get deployed pod 1, pod 2, because these two pods are handling related to the respective package of node 1. The dependencies which are available in node 1 only of these two pods, right? Similarly, this pod 3 of dependencies which is available in node 2. That's how the affinity come into picture. The See, in Kubernetes is a set of scheduling rules that defines the scheduler in deciding where to place the pods in the cluster. You getting the clarity now?
Yes, sir.
Affinity and anti-affinity. See, there are three things here. Node affinity means here we are scheduling pods in the nodes, correct? Scheduling a pod to a specific nodes based on the node labels. Here, this both we call it as node affinity.
Okay.
Okay, now when it comes to the pod affinity, here the required pod should get deployed to the particular node. This we call it as pod affinity. Okay, suppose if you have three pods which is available in your workspace, either of these three, two get deployed to particular node. This we call it as affinity, means we are scheduling some specific pod to the specific node by providing the node label. This we call it as affinity. When it comes to the anti-affinity, we are excluding, see, schedule pods away from the certain pods means We are excluding this pod 3 scheduling in node 1, correct? We are calling it as anti-affinity, the opposite of that. That's it. See, say suppose if you have not created this
Uh,
node 2, we cannot deploy this pod 3 into this node 1.
so do you mean to say we create two different node labels
Yes,
and mention the first two the first label and this and the pod three will be the another label?
correct. So
Okay.
basically, we wanted to create this. See, when we use this affinity and anti-affinity and node affinity, when we are handling the huge application, huge amount of application, the very large applications, we will create the pod, the multiple pods, and that pod we are configuring to scheduling it to the particular node. That's how we use the anti-affinity come into picture from Kubernetes concept. Getting it?
Yes, sir.
That's how we make use of affinity and anti-affinity and the node affinity.
And pod affinity will uses pod labels. Node affinity
Yes.
uses node labels.
Yes.
P- so if we want to put a pod 3 in the different node,
Hmm.
we have to mention both the node 2 label and the pod 3 label.
Correct. See, basically we are tagging it. See, we
Uh-huh.
do attach this node to label, the node selector inside this YAML file so that we are configuring it so that it gets deployed to the particular node.
And pod 1 and 2 have the same application and pod 3 is completely different here, right?
Yes, yes. See,
Okay.
because this pod 1 and 2 are handling which is related to the node 1 dependencies.
Okay.
Okay. And pod 3 is handling, see, all three are the same project requirement. You're getting my point now. We are
Hmm.
dividing the resources. That's it. There is nothing like this is not a, this is the unwanted pod, and we cannot think like that. These three are the project requirement pods. We are just dividing the load based on the node capacity, based on the node requirement, based on the node dependencies, right? So that your pod, see, we cannot deploy this pod 1 and pod 2 in the node 3. Why? Because this dependency is different for pod 1 and pod 2 dependency packages, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot build your Linux build in the uh, Windows build, right? That's how we do differentiate. We do divide the resources here. You getting my
Got it, sir.
point?
Got it.
That's how we affinity we you implement in the Kubernetes. Okay. Now,
Okay.
now I'll give again the statement for affinity here. Okay, affinity and anti-affinity. Okay, so affinity means tag together or stick together. Okay, tag or stick. Okay, similarly, anti-affinity. Okay, this means stay together, right? Stay together in the sense, except these two, this pod 3 should get deployed to this, right? In case of node 1, except pod 3, this 2 should get deployed. You are able to understand this? Stay together means we are staying together separately. That's it.
Then my question, have a question. Exactly, what is the use of anti-affinity? If we directly define two different node labels,
Hmm.
we can directly mention the pod with the labels, right? What is the purpose of anti-affinity here?
No, 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 no. See, okay, say suppose if you have defined this node 1 should contain these two pods, right?
Mm,
Correct, right? Your
yeah.
project requirement to create by three pods, then where
Uh-huh.
you will create, where you will deploy this pod 3. If that is the case, we should have. We want the anti-affinity, right? See, if you are not implementing this anti-affinity, this either of these pod can pick this node one, either of these three, right? See, it messed with the concept, right? We are
No,
not
my
defining.
my question is, we if we define different labels for both the nodes,
Hmm,
and if you mention pod 1 and 2 should go to that node 1 in the manifest,
hmm.
and pod 3 has to go to the node 2, it will match the label node label, right?
No, if even though if you match your label, there are concepts in preferred and required. Okay,
Okay.
so your anti-affinity preferred this pod, we should have the preferred label that we pointed, then only it picks. See, that's what schedule pod away means. We are scheduling away from these two and scheduling it to this node one. That's how the anti-affinity works. So even though when you pointed your label, so we are not sure, we will not get a long-term support when you point only the label, right? So when you deploy your application via the Helm chart, you might see in the affinity at last, right? Have you seen this?
Yes, I have.
So there we define which pod to deploy on which node. If that is the case, anti-affinity that we wanted to define, we prefer required labels in the manifest in your Helm charts itself to pick this pod. Are you clear on this?
Yes, sir.
See, when you point your label, we will not get a long-term support. See, we look for a long-term support, right? Your pipeline should be stable. Your Helm charts should be unstable, right? Correct, right? Again, we will not get a hot fix to be, again, you will pull the Helm chart from the repository and you will have to fix it locally and build it local. And again, you need to push it to remote. We cannot do day-to-day activity daily, right? Once you cleared, once you return your functions, it should work, correct?
Uh,
So it should work whenever you run your pipeline. Apart from whenever you run after 2 years or 3 years, it should sustain. It should give the stable pipeline. We call it as your Helm charts, right? That's how we implement anti-affinity. See, basically, we are dividing the resources. That's it. Based on the pod creation, based on the pods available. Getting my point?
yes, sir.
See, this statement is saying stick together means we are attaching it. Stay together means we are away from these two pods. Anyways, we are all these tasks which will handle in the same network, in the same cluster,
Mm,
right? So
yeah.
instead of picking the respective pods, we are defining some set of rules to define affinity in terms of affinity and anti-affinity. That's it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, see this pod affinity, as I told already, schedule a pod near other pods based on label and other pods means this picks a particular pod based on the label, and also we are defining affinity in terms of as a terminology called affinity. That's how it works.
Okay,
Okay,
sir.
and you were able to understand this affinity and anti-affinity.
Yes.
Yes. Now I do have some of the examples for affinity. Okay, so that's this, that YAML is looks like that only. Okay, so I do have, I'll show it here. Here is pod affinity and anti-affinity and node affinity. Okay, so I have two YAML files. One is related to the pod affinity and anti-affinity. We used both in a in a single YAML file. Okay, so here you might know the API version and the kind is pod. Okay, again you will make a complaint. I did not show the practical part. Again, the feedback will go to our team. Better to show here because like, uh, I'm gonna log in. Before moving to that, I should have explained the. I went to explain that concept here. Okay. So I believe that I did not explain any of the concept in theoretically. I have shared my screen and I have shown to everyone, right? Even though I got the same pod.yml. Let's check the Docker status, right? Sudo systemctl Docker status, right? Sorry. Status. Sudo systemctl status Docker,
Yeah,
right?
status Docker, not Docker status.
Yeah, yeah. Status Docker. Okay. Now the Docker is running. See, if I run df-h, I have increased. Sorry, df-h. I have increased the volume to. See, I have increased the volume and attached that volume to this dev root. Now it is 19 GB totally out of 20 GB. Means if you created 20 GB, it will show 19.5, 19.6, not exactly the 20 GB. That's why it is showing 19 GB, and used is 9.4 and available is 9 GB. You can only 50% is used. Okay, you can use the same. You create a volumes under your instance and attach that to your created instance so that you will have increased with your instance, your EC2 instance. Okay. Okay. Am I muted?
No. You are
Okay.
audible.
Okay. Now,
Can you increase a
let's
bit the font size? Just a bit.
change settings, appearance, change 18. Apply. Is it clear?
Yeah, it's visible properly.
Okay. Now let's configure Minikube. Download this repository and install the Minikube. Okay, and here let's create two nodes. Okay, Minikube start hyphen nodes count to 2, right? See, if need, use node this method. Okay, because we should have, see, to understand affinity and anti-affinity, we should have the nodes. When we create a multiple nodes, we should have the multiple nodes to be created, right? So let's create two nodes when we start creating a Minikube. Okay, so I'm gonna run this. Actually, it's just a minute, I'm getting a call. Sorry. So now this cluster setup is done. You guys are with me, right? I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now we had done with the cluster setup. We'll have to set the alias to run all our kubectl command. So let's now when you run kubectl get nodes, right? Correct, right? To list the nodes, we should see the two nodes, right? So now this is created two nodes, correct? You will be
One.
one with, see, minikube itself is a node,
Okay.
okay? And the minikube m02 is the another node which is created by this hyphen node 2, okay? Both are created, okay? Status is ready, right?
Yes.
Correct, right?
Yes, sir.
Ah, now, so what we need to do before moving to this, I should explain this affinity. Uh, how do we make use in the affinity and how how it get deployed? Okay, so now I'm going to explain this. See, basically, I'll explain this node affinity first because we need to configure node first. Then we go with the pod affinity. Okay, so basically, the node affinity manifest looks this way. Okay, so we will be having see, these are all the customized which is picked from the Kubernetes document. Okay, so we cannot show this particular node and particular pod in a organization structured way. This is a sample. Okay, so the API version from v1 and the kind should create as a pod. Okay, and then metadata with node affinity. Okay, so basically under specs we define affinity here. Under affinity there will be a node affinity. Okay, here the statement calls required during scheduling, ignored during execution. Okay, this is the case we use affinity. This is very important. Here there are two things. One is required during scheduling ignored during execution. You need to understand this statement clearly. Okay, similarly we do have preferred during scheduling, ignored during execution. Here two things. One is required and another one is preferred. Rest of the things is staying same. You're able to understand this?
Yes.
Under affinity, under node affinity, we do have required during scheduling, ignored during execution. See, no worries about this YAML file. You will get, when you Googled, you will get this from the Kubernetes community, Kubernetes authority documents. You will get this YAML file. No worries on this. But we need to understand the terminologies that we used. Where do we use? What do we use? Affinity. Similarly, we do under spec. See, the other days that the other sessions that we used under spec, we used only the containers, right? Similarly, when we wanted to make use of affinity, we have to use affinity as a spec. Means we are defining some specifications related to affinity. Okay, so under that affinity, I have used node affinity, right? So under that, there are two things: required and preferred. Okay, so the under required during, see, this statement clearly says these are affinities, these are required, these values are required during scheduling. Okay, so whenever the pod is scheduling to the particular node, this required, and ignoring during execution, we no need. When the pod is executing, we no need that the values, right? That's what here. Preferred means must and should. Preferred means must and should. Preferred during scheduling, ignored during execution means these values. Okay, so let me explain this required and preferred. So this required spec that we use node selector terms. See, these are all the parameters that we use in the affinity configuration. See, anyways, you know this node selector, right? Node selector term, right? And match expressions, right? The key that we use to match the label, which is this. This is a label of your key. Okay, and the operator in. and the values of your key is this, these two. See, this may replace. This is basically on the name that we're tagging. This line number 483, line number 484 is fixed. These two terms are fixed from line number 482, line number 484. Okay. The only the key that we are calling it as Kubernetes API, the operator. You are aware of labels and selectors in, not in, exists and does not exist. Correct? Did I
Yes, sir.
explain those labels? Now, if I use the operator in means we including it the values of these two. Means there are the two regions that we wanted to pick the node selector of the match label expression with this API of Kubernetes. Means required. These two regions are required in this zone of the Kubernetes API. You were able to understand this? Required.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Similarly, we do have preferred. See, under preferred, I have written very first line, line number 491, wait. This wait you can define between 1 to 100. Okay. This line you can define between 1 to 100. If you defined 1, it's a low weightage. If you define in between 50 to 100, it's a more weightage. Means the capacity of your pod will get decreased if you define 1. And if you're when you define weight of from 50 to 100, say suppose instead of 1 you can define 50, so that your capacity of your pod increased, the high weightage. Correct, right? The weight, right? So as of now we'll keep it as 1. Now after that I have written preference. So what I need to give the preference, the label, the match expression. Here the key is different. Correct, right? Here the key is different. We are dividing a resource under node affinity for required. The key, the match expression key is different for this node selector term. And basically we are dividing a resources for required and preferred. You were able to understand this? And the key is different here for preferred during scheduling, ignored during execution, right? And then the operator is in and the values are same when we pointed a key here. You were able to understand this required and preferred.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now after that, where do we need to point these node affinity? We need to point the container spec, right? The container name with node affinity, and the image would be this. Okay. This image with the node affinity that we defined with the required and the preferred node affinity to differentiate the keys with different for different regions, basically the labels. See, that's what we prefer, the labels based on the regions. Okay, the match expressions, the match labels. You getting my point here?
Hmm. Yes.
The operator that I used here is in. Remember that labels and selectors
Yeah,
that I
sir.
have
Set based.
explained. What happened?
Yes, sir. Set based.
Yes, set based. In, not in, and exist. Now we are getting the clarity where we use those labels and operators where we make use. In the affinity, when we want to configure node affinity, right? So what I'll do, I'll copy this. See, no worries on this YAML file, okay? When you Google, you will get this YAML. But the understanding level is important here.
So we have to define the node labels before creating the pods, right?
Yes,
And how does this exactly know which nodes has to select?
that's what, this is the pod configuration,
Okay, but
affinity.
before that, we have to define the labels for the nodes, right? If it has to match, if the pod has to match.
Yes. We need to define the match label. See, when you point this label or key, this will automatically create your label. You getting my point? You should not
Okay.
create labels and selectors separately. These labels are available. See, how do we define these labels is, say suppose if you want to configure, the labels are matched with the regions, right?
But what if we create the pods in the same region?
What is your question?
Sorry, what if we create the nodes in the same region?
That's what we need to
Both the
create
nodes.
a node pod with the same region only, na?
Uh-huh. So if we want to create, so how does this YAML file
Hmm.
get to know that which pod? Because both pods,
That's
both nodes have
what
the different IP
we are
address, right?
not configuring pod still. See, kind, even though when we point kind as pod,
Mm-hmm.
here, see, basically, here we are creating a pod, correct?
Mm. Yeah.
Now we are pointing node selector terms in terms of zones, the regions, correct?
Mm.
So these two regions should get tagged with this key as a label.
Mm.
This we select, which is from the cloud providers, the labels based on the zones, which is already created in the cloud providers. Okay, this label contains some set of nodes,
Mm.
or maybe one node.
Mm.
When the pod is created, of these two will get deployed to this labeled node, will get deployed
So
whenever required.
we have to create two nodes in different zones.
It's not like that we need to create different zones. This is basically so, okay. Let's say there are two regions. Okay,
Huh,
this
okay.
let's make it this way.
Huh,
Let's understand in a simple way. Okay,
okay.
so there are two regions: east one, west one. Okay,
Okay. Mm.
this east one having one pod and one node, and the west one is having one node. The
Okay.
label of those nodes is this
The key one.
key.
The key.
Yes, the
Okay.
key one. Okay,
Okay.
now when we call that node selector term under key, this pod will get deployed to this node under
Okay.
key.
Okay.
Okay, similarly it will applicable for node 2. That's how we call the key. These keys are we readily available, and we differentiate. That's how we created a infra by deploying our Terraform templates.
Okay.
You getting my point? See, basically we are tagging it. It's a kind of tag. This tag or labels or match labels already have some nodes created readily
Okay.
by creating our templates, by deploying our templates from the cloud providers. That when we point that label in the pod creation, this pod will get deployed to this particular node. You getting my point?
Yeah, got you. Are there any other ways other than this, other than region, to tag in key?
Environments.
Okay.
Okay, and also we do have zones, environments, regions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the namespaces, right? We should get deployed with the put. See, we can have the namespaces label also we can attach. Okay,
Okay.
that is basically some number, and
Ah,
also based on your feature, the application feature that you implement, right? That's how we do have the keys that we implement.
and if a node fails and if the cluster restarts another node,
Hmm.
then it will again put the key for that particular node.
Yes. So the key will be always same,
Okay.
but the actual task, the node restarts and pod restarts will happen.
Huh.
But this label will be always be available. That's why we call it as a stable key, the stable label,
Okay.
right? See, this label contains some resources, means including your node, correct? That's why we point this match expression under key as a label here.
Okay.
Clear with this?
Yeah.
Sandeep, here we are restricting in required during schedule, right?
Hmm.
So when it will go for preferred?
See, here you can see the difference, right? The key. There are two different labels.
Yes.
Okay. So when it comes to the, see, this is the pod affinity and anti affinity.
Mm.
That's what I'm saying. You guys are not even having a patience to explain complete clarity. In the middle, you're asking some question. Okay, no worries. Okay, your question is to when it goes to the required and when it goes to the preferred, right? There are two labels which are available: topology and another the key, the value, right? Another node label value, right? Correct, right? Now,
Yes.
when it comes to the pod, when it picks here, here under preferred, right? The key, say like security, and the label selector which is pointing topology key, the pod creation here. See here I used affinity, pod affinity, right? And under affinity I used node affinity. Under node affinity I have defined two labels, right? This topology and the another node label value, right?
Yes.
In the pod configuration we are defining which pod to pick the which node, correct?
Yes.
Correct, right? So when we creating a pod, the label selector under pod affinity, and here I have defined pod anti affinity both in a single YAML file. Okay. Now this label selector, when I point this topology of key which I configured in the node affinity, it picks this pod.
Mm.
Okay.
Yes.
Similarly, under pod anti affinity, I do have except. I do have except. See here, I have the values S1. Here I have the values S2. Except when creating this, see, even though when it creates the pod, except these values, we call it as anti-affinity. You getting my point? The values, it's just a simple value called S1. Okay, under anti-affinity, except these two, S2 creates and pick a particular, except this S2 and pick this topology key. You getting my point? With the container as with pod anti-affinity.
Okay.
You were able to understand this?
Yeah.
So now under required, pick this value. When we want to exclude some of the terms or labels or some of the concept, in the similar pod we do use pod anti-affinity with preferred, means we preferred with values of S2, right? Under labels and selectors we do this, the keys are same, right? Here inside this we should exclude, stay away from these values. That is the case we use pod anti-affinity. You getting my point now,
Yes, sir.
or still confusion?
No, not confused. We'll implement
um,
this and yeah.
yes, Amrita,
Yes.
you are you clear on this?
My question is, for anti-affinity, we have to use preferred, or there also we can use required. Means both we are using, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So whenever we are mentioning that pod affinity, we have to mention required. So in anti-affinity means exclude. That time we have to
correct.
mention. Okay.
Yes, yes. See, that's what under pod affinity you should have some required values, right? Correct, right?
Yes.
So when it comes to the pod and anti-affinity, you need to have some preferred values. You need to prefer something to under anti-affinity to exclude it, right?
Yes.
So if that is the case, when you use required under pod anti-affinity, you will not get deployed.
Mm.
So that's how this manifest as written. You need to exclude some values. You need to exclude some data, right? This especially when we are having the huge database that we configure, like either Postgres or MySQL, we'll use these. Okay, some tables, some schema tables, right? Some schema tables that we need to exclude it when the pod creation. See here, I have written line number 459. Weight 100 means there are more data which is handling. The weightage is more. As soon as you can define weightages between from 1 to 100, right? The weightage is more, that we can say, right? You getting my point?
Yes, I got it.
Are you clarified your doubt or still
N-
you have a question?
No, no, I got it.
Okay. Now let's create this affinity first. So anyways, we do have the pod created, sorry, node created. What I'll do, I'll copy this and again, Jairam, any questions?
No, sir.
Any doubts? Vi pod dot yaml. Uh, Sharif Puja. And anybody has any questions?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. So this we deploy via the Helm chart. Okay. So I'm doing it by piece of part. Okay. Now how do we deploy it?
kubectl apply -f the file name.
Correct, right? Pod.yml.
Yeah.
Now this with pod affinity is created. Correct. Now how do we describe it?
kubectl describe
Online.
uh, affinity, then the affinity, the name of it.
Okay. We'll do this way.
kubectl get pods.
Oops, get message.
Pods.
And kubectl describe pods.
Wait. Output we will give it in a wide way. Okay. Output is equals to wide.
Right.
Okay. So now see why these are pending is we have not defined any this container is not exist. The first point. That's why it is saying ready 0 of 1. Okay. Now by seeing this output, you can see the with node affinity, right? And with pod affinity. Correct. So from this, when there is a okay, did we deployed? Okay, the name with pod affinity. Why it came node affinity here? Okay, did I deployed? Okay, kubectl. Okay, the name. Okay, I got it. I have created some pods yesterday. Kubectl delete pods. Okay, now you can see this when it created, and this node affinity is created and 7 hours ago, right? This pod affinity that we created just now, correct? And then IP should get assigned, and the node this should get deployed here. We have not pointed any node here, correct? Now to attach this node, some preferred node affinity, we should assign some values to that particular node. Okay, so what I'll do, I will assign some value to that particular node saying kubectl labels. Okay, nodes. Under nodes, I'll before moving to kubectl get nodes. Right, there are two nodes. Okay, so I'm just assigning some label to that particular node. Okay, kubectl labels nodes, and I'm gonna point this node to assign some label. Okay, and let's assign it to disk type as a label. Okay, is equals to ssd. The label name that I'm assigning it to disk type is equals to ssd. Okay, I'll run this. What happened?
Disk disk.
Okay, disk type this kubectl labels nodes minikube. Second node, what is the label? Okay, it should be label, not yes. Okay, now if I run kubectl get nodes hyphen o wide, right? Now this node is assigned with some label, correct? So what is the label? Which is where is the label? Okay, output should give this way. complete hyphen hyphen output is equals to void, right? Now if I run this, where is the label it went? So we have created the label of disk type. Okay. 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 Now I got it. See, we have assigned a label called disk type as SSD, correct? This we need to call it under our manifest, correct? Let's modify under pod.yml here. Let's make a, let's call this uh, pod to make this disk type as a label, okay? So what I'll do, I'll keep this API version v1. Let's deploy that pod, okay? And kind as pod metadata, under metadata I'll keep it as again nginx, okay? And under spec I'll keep as it is affinity, and I'll keep node affinity. Required, under required I'll keep it as node selector terms, and match labels under key I'll give it as, what is the label that I've created? Disk type, correct?
Yes.
Correct, right?
Yes.
Disk type, and then operator I'll keep it as in, and then values, instead of values I'll remove this. Under values I'll keep it as, what is my value here? Give a tab hyphen SSD, correct? Correct, right?
Yes.
Disk type is my key, the label, and the value of disk type is SSD, right? And also I'll keep, I'll remove this because I don't want this preferred, and I'll start with the container configuration. Containers name I'll keep it as nginx, okay? And under image I'm gonna point as nginx, okay? And then I'm gonna write keyword tab image pull policy. So this is the terminology that we use. It pulls the image if not present, means if the image is not present in locally, this will go to this policy and pulls the image of nginx, whatever the image that you preferred here under containers. That's why we prefer image pull policy. If not present, if not present in locally, pull the image from remote. That's how this define, okay? So i'm gonna I'm gonna recheck one more time the API version v1, and the kind I'm going to create a spot metadata nginx. The metadata name is nginx, and then spec under affinity. I've used node affinity here to create this pod to get deployed with this match label, okay? And the value that I've used is SSD. I'm going to deploy this here, kubectl get pods, okay? Kubectl delete, let's delete this, delete pods, and pod get deleted. There is no pods. I'm gonna replace with this YAML to create the, this document is picked from the Kubernetes document. You can also check this, okay? SSD, uh, let's check the nested way. There are two space name nginx under spec affinity should come here, and node affinity required node, and then match label key operator values SSD, and image pull policy should come here. Keyword tab. Okay, now let's save this. Okay, now if I run apply, apply. Okay, kubectl apply fnf pod.yml. Now this nginx pod is created. If I run kubectl get pods hyphen output
Equals
is
wide.
equals to wide. Sorry,
Wide.
wide. Now this pod is created, and is it picked this minikube M02?
Yeah.
You are able to see this.
Yes,
Now
sir.
this pod will get deployed to this node. This is how we are defining affinity and anti-affinity. Suppose if you want to exclude it, you define under uh,
Uh,
when you are pointing this
Preferred.
node affinity, you can also point the pod affinity and you can define the values.
Okay.
Okay, and remember that I have defined the value of uh, no minikube M02, and here I have defined some value here, right? Where is this? This is the label that I have created, right? Correct,
Yes.
right? So here I have assigned some label to that particular node to this, so that we can conclude that it is this pod nginx pod is picked this value. Clear?
Clear, sir.
Any questions and any doubts, guys? That's it about the affinity, node affinity, anti-affinity, pod affinity, and pod anti-affinity. There is no node anti-affinity. Okay, there will be only one for node affinity. That's it. And under pod, there will be a pod affinity and pod anti-affinity. Include and exclude. That's it.
Okay, sir.
Are you guys able to understand this activity? And
Yes.
Yes, sir, understand.
Yes, Sandeep.
what about others, guys?
Yes, Sandeep.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I'll do, I'll share some of the this will be available in your Kubernetes document. You can also refer, but you need to understand this properly. That's it. Do I need to share this? Anyways, I'm gonna share this in the this document, and also some of the examples I do have. I'll share this. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Can you create from Helm chart the affinity and anti-affinity?
Okay.
See,
Yes,
whatever
Sandeep.
the questions that you have given now from everybody, you will get this from Google. But I don't know why you guys are given here. No worries. So I'll give this to everyone. Okay. And also uh, this affinity and anti-affinity, there are a lot of documents, lot of uh, procedures are available. You can refer those. If you have any doubts and any questions and any concepts that you not understood, you can ask me. Okay, this is very important.
Okay.
And rest of the concepts we will discuss in further sessions.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Anybody has any questions and any doubts?
We'll try with the helm chat and ask
Yeah,
tomorrow.
you try with the bare pod ML.
Okay.
If that works, implement in
Helm.
Helm.
Okay.
Again, anybody has any questions, guys?
Sandeep,
Again, what
like, how do we get to know, like, we wanted to match with this, either the zone level or with the namespace, like, how do we get to know that?
okay. So this labels, see when we start configuring the project, whether the labels are configured with, we have to check whether the labels are configured with namespaces, or labels are configured with zones, or labels are created with or configured with the uh, groups, right? So
Yes, yes.
we do have some of the groups under network rules, right, that we need to work on accordingly, right?
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can you can explore in the project. Based on that, we can point the particular labels. So we cannot use the customized, we cannot use the wanted labels, and we cannot use something will not work on that labels. We should define the proper label, where to deploy, and what is the label criteria that they have defined in the project level, that we need to point that label to pick the particular pod to be created.
Okay, Sandeep, got it. Yeah.
Any questions or any doubts? It may be anything you can ask. Maybe Jenkins, maybe Git, maybe Docker. Amruta, yes. Do you have any questions? Apart from this, you understood all the concept. How can I believe? When we ask questions in Q&A, Pooja HB, are you interested here or you want to quit? We just wanted to understand because I I was in a good impression. Omar Sharif, Pooja, and Amruta, yes, are okay. They are working even though when they are working. Pooja HB, are you working right somewhere? And you said that even though when you are working and your balance, you are managing the sessions and you're working means alternatively, right? So I was
Yes.
in a good impression that you guys are working, but when I saw that Q&A with Sandeep Swami and along with me, it looks like that you are not gone through the concept right. What is the problem here? You are not even saying the login for Docker. What was the issue? Even though many of the people are working and they are preparing, right? See, our intention here is to not to pick the particular names here, not to hurt anybody, but we want the candidate here to be learned and work independently. And when you join the organization, you should work and you should have communicated to your team that you need this and you wanted to understand and you have to complete your task, right? Why you guys are not understanding this? Why we want to call the name and why we want to pick, why we want to schedule the sessions and schedule Q&A? What is the problem, Pooja HB?
No, Sandeep, like I actually I got confused that Docker Hub login. So I told Docker login instead of.
Did he mention Docker Hub?
No, no, no. He asked how to log into container, but I got confused and I told for.
Okay. Okay, if that is the case, where you will create your container? Did you create your container in Docker Hub?
No, no.
What you will store in your Docker Hub?
The image. Like
Correct,
we'll
right?
push
Where
my.
your container will come then? See, this looks you're not practiced. You are not aware of the single basic concept. Are we handling containers in remote? Your Docker Hub.
No, Sandeep.
We do push an image, pull the image, and as soon as you pull it to a local, as soon as you build, you run Docker run, it will create a container, right, based on the image you created.
Yes, correct.
Correct, right? You should
Yeah.
understand when the container will create and what is the purpose that we use image and what do we integrate in the container and what is the purpose of the container, correct?
Yes.
And then how do we log in that? See, what I understood, you guys are attending sessions, but you are not practicing it. Only few are okay, but not all. Are you blocking somewhere, Pooja?
No, Sandeep.
Because we are not understanding the problem statement and we are not understanding it. What is blocking you to explain? Or there might be some reasons, right? You are not getting time, you are not getting what to say, your concepts are not cleared. There will be some reasons, right?
Yeah, few concepts that I've not gone through. I'll be a little stuck
when
to saying
when
this.
when you will when you will go through, we have given a lot of time, right? It's been 5 months that we started sessions, right? It's been not 3 months, 5 months, right?
Yeah.
Then when we need to start your placements here? If you guys are giving the same statement, same definition, and still you few of the people are saying not understood the concept and not clear on it, Omar Sharif,
Oh, yes, sir.
what is the problem from your end? Are you blocked somewhere, or are you hesitate to ask the doubts, or am I not clearing your doubts? Am I not giving the right statement? It's just we need to understand, yeah.
No, sir, you're clearing the doubts, sir. I
And
have
what
to
is
move
the
more from my side.
see when I saw that when you were saying a statement, your statements are completely confusing. Okay, the see if I'm explaining something, I'll have to make you understand, right? The communication. There should
Yes,
not be a gap. See, even though grammar mistake is fine, yeah. When you are putting is, when you want to put was, you that is fine. We not observe the nouns, pronouns, and verbs and non-verbs and all. We don't need that. We want the technical concept. So as soon as you know, as soon as you understood these concepts, you will be prepared with your own. The grammar will come automatically, right?
yes,
Correct, right? See, when you want to write this line, you will be get prepared, right? Your intention here is to schedule the pod with a specific node, right? You will put in between two, right? That's how it will match with your grammar. Correct, right?
yes, sir.
See, you need to work more. And Veerabhadra, did Veeresh join? No, right? This guy not gonna worthy. I'll stop sharing my screen first. And Veeresh is not joined, right? Okay. And Siddesh, you need to improve more.
Yes, sir. I will definitely, sir.
You will tell the same reason, yeah. Okay. Anyways, let's connect tomorrow. Let's have more concepts discussed and let's understand more from Kubernetes perspective.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
thank you.
Thanks.